The front lunge with contralateral overhead press. So an overhead press is the arm going up and down, and a lunge is going forward. Contralateral refers to the opposite side. So if I'm going to be lunging forward into a front or forward lunge with my right leg, I'll want my opposite arm to be driving upward. Now, I'm not using weights at this time, just to prove a point that it may not be necessary to suddenly just grab dumbbells if you haven't been exercising in a little while. And for that matter, if you have been exercising for a little while and you're used to using weights, who's to say that the mechanics that you're using are actually true and pure? Maybe there's some compensatory actions going on. So it's important that we go through the movement first before applying load. Make sure that the joints can go through the range that they need to, and the muscles can lengthen or shorten the way they should during the motion. And then once you've established that, then by all means, go ahead and grab a kettlebell or a dumbbell or a rubber band or whatever your form of resistance is going to be. But when it comes to the front lunge, we want to see that as you lunge out, slightly, perhaps maybe a little bit greater than your average stride length, that the forward leg is going to flex at the ankle, the knee, and the hip. And the pelvis is going to tilt forward. Now the foot of that forward leg, the arches are going to splay out. They're going to kind of drop and spread. So the tissue underneath is going to act like a kid on a trampoline. It's just going to go down so that it bounces us right on back to the starting point. Now, as that arch drops down, it actually sends the knee forward and toward the big toe of that foot. That helps to load the muscle tissue surrounding the knee and the hip like a slingshot, like a trampoline, to drive me back to this position. Meanwhile, the rear leg, the non-stepping leg, is going to go through kind of the opposite. It's going to stay straight. The heel is going to come off, so the foot is going to push off to get us forward. Meanwhile, the knee wants to stay extended or straight. Now, you may feel like it's straight, but every now and then look back when you're doing a lunge, just pause and see, is it truly straight? And what you're most likely going to find is you've got maybe a half an inch or an inch more to give into that extension. And then suddenly you'll feel a lot of tissue in the front of the hip and thigh and maybe into the midsection start to really open up and load, much like a slingshot, because that's how we move to drive that leg forward. So we're really doing two things with the lunge. One is to teach how the load of the forward leg is going to occur, but also to teach how this leg is going to spring forward if we were, say, walking, running, or practicing on a tennis court or on some soccer field or whatever it is that you prefer to do. So with that forward lunge, flexion, 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 extension, extension, extension. Opposite arm is going to reach upward. Now what that's going to cause to occur is as I reach up, I'm not just straightening my arm, but I'm reaching. That's going to drive the rib cage over toward the forward leg side. And you'll see that my head, for the most part, is lined up directly in front or over the knee. So this action is occurring. The hips are dropping on one side, or the pelvis is dropping on one side, tilting the pelvis in the direction of the back leg. The arm raising up is going to get the rib cage to go in the opposite direction, and then the head has to stay nice and level by tilting the opposite direction of the rib cage. So contralateral overhead press is a great way of not just loading the forward leg or getting the back leg to feel extension, but it's actually loading a whole bunch of tissue throughout the entire body. And it's actually a very specific movement that we will automatically find in the gait cycle. Somewhere in the gait cycle, in one of the phases, these body parts find this shape. So can we get into it as well as get out of it? Make sure that you assess before the movement, perform the exercise, reassess. What was the outcome?